Hello, here we are. It's me again. It's 4 o'clock here in the UK, so this is the time that I have advertised to you that I would be live talking about sales reframes. So, what I mean by a sales reframe is what is sales and what isn't it? How might you need to reframe what sales is versus maybe what it isn't? So, if you are here with me, give me a hashtag live. Tell me hello. Tell me that you're here. Give me some love. Give me something to spur me on because it's lonely sat here by myself and I want to know that you're there. I'm not going to waste time with long introductions. I'm just going to get straight into the session, which is all about sales reframes. So I know that a lot of you guys, maybe certainly a lot of the people that I've worked with to date, have all said to me that they've got sales maybe muddled up in their brain a little bit. They've got sales in the kind of the can't do box, or sales is in the kind of the yucky box, the awkward box, that I don't really know if I want to do it box. Um, and so I'm hopefully going to share some stuff with you on this session that helps to unpick some of those mindsets and reframe them in a different way. So I've got a funny story to share with you. So I was training a team of people who all worked together. There was about 8 of them. And they were all salespeople, apart from one who was the sales support person. So she would help everybody with their admin and their invoicing and their client communications. And so she was their support person. And during this training session, which was on sales, we were talking about, characteristics of a good salesperson. And this support member of staff, this support team member said, "Oh, I could never be good at sales. Like you guys, fair play to you all for being good at sales, but I could never do it." And me as the trainer, I said, "Do you mind me asking why not? Why do you think that you couldn't do it?" And she said, "Because I'm too honest." And that is a shared view. That is a shared view by many people, that if you're in sales, you must be good at chatting. You must be good at pulling the wool over somebody's eyes. If you're in sales, you must be good at asking for money. If you're in sales, you must lie. If you're in sales, you must persuade or influence or push people, or you must be good at adding pressure to people. And I am an advocate of sales. I've been in sales all of my career, and I am here to tell you sales is none of those things. Sales is not something that happens to you, it's something that happens for you. Okay? Sales, you need to reframe, is not something that happens to you, it happens for you. When somebody is trying to sell you something, if they're trying to make that happen to you, you have a sense of that, don't you? You have a sense if, I don't know, let's say you want to go and buy a new TV and you're in the shop, and if the salesperson who's talking you through the new TV, if they start making you feel like the sale is happening to you, it's usually because they're driven by money. They don't really care whether you get the right TV, they just want to make a sale. And so that's when it starts to feel wrong to you as the buyer. And so if you then take that feeling and that mindset and you go and take that into your sales conversations, of course you're going to feel slightly weird and icky and strange and awkward about it, because you've been educated by bad salespeople to make you believe that sales is something that happens to you, not for you. Sales is something that is about pressure, and it's about pushing you, influencing you, and making you do something that you don't want to do. If you have ever been on the receiving end of a salesperson who sells in that way, then they have not helped your sales mindset, because they've built a kind of a label in your brain that says sales is dodgy, sales is weird. And I'm here to hopefully reframe that for you. Okay, so can see you've got some people joining. So hello and welcome if you've just joined. So I am going to share my screen because I've got a couple of things. Actually, no, I'm not, because I'm not on Zoom. So I'm not going to share my screen. I'm just going to talk through what I've got over here on my screen. I decided to abandon Zoom because it let me down earlier from a technology point of view. So yeah, I just went live in the event. So sales reframe number one, I've just been alluding to it, is that selling is serving. Okay? Selling is not selling. Selling is not asking for money. Selling is not pressurizing somebody. Selling is about asking questions, listening so that you can understand what somebody needs and wants and values so that you can serve them. Not so that you can take their money. Okay? So if you believe, if you were on my earlier session today, I asked you possibly some awkward questions about money and how you might feel about sales, what your sales mindset is, what your money mindset is. If any of those questions made you feel a bit like, oh, Rachel, that's a bit close to the knuckle, that's a bit rude, you can't ask me about money. We've been educated all our lives to believe that you shouldn't ask somebody what they earn, or you shouldn't ask somebody what they want to earn, or you shouldn't ask somebody the amount of their salary or the value of their house or anything to do with money, which feels personal. And we put that in the rude box, don't we? That goes in the it's too rude to talk about. And so that brings us to this place where sales, because it's linked with money, feels not very nice. And I am going to invite you to spend the rest of your days believing that sales is about serving, because it is. The most important person in a sales conversation is not you. It's the customer. The most important person in a sales conversation is not the salesperson. Any salesperson that behaves like the most important person in the conversation is going to fail. Why do I know that? How do I know that? Because I'm a buyer. I might train people on sales, but I'm also a buyer. I buy things in my life just like you buy things in your life. And if anybody makes you feel like, as the salesperson, they're more important than you, what do? You walk away. Yeah? So we've all been probably in our past and bought a car, bought a house, bought a TV, bought something big, bought a new mobile phone or a new computer. We've all been and bought those things and potentially had that feeling that the salesperson who was walking us through the product, helping us decide, we've all had the feeling that maybe they thought that they were more important in the conversation than we are. And that simply isn't true. So we must reframe sales into serving, because most of you work in a service-based industry. So whether you are a coach or a consultant or a virtual assistant or a web developer or a web designer or a graphic designer, whatever you sell, the chances are, if you're here in this group with me, you probably sell a service rather than sell a product. And so it becomes even more important for you to really understand what the customer needs. Okay, now you will have probably heard when you do your ideal client profile work that it's all about finding out what the customer's needs and problems are. But actually, when it comes to deciding whether or not they are going to make a purchase, think about what you use as your deciding factors when you make a purchase. The thing that really nails it is not needs, it's not problems, it's not challenges, it's wants. What do I want? I might need something, but what do I actually want? I might have a particular problem that needs to be overcome. What do I want to do? What am I prepared to do? How far am I prepared to go to make a change? How big a leap am I prepared to take to get the change that I'm looking for? So if you're a virtual assistant, you probably write a lot of your copy, a lot of your content around saving somebody time, helping your client to grow their business, helping your client to leave behind the tasks that maybe they don't like or aren't good at or don't enjoy. And you might write a lot of your content around that. But your buyer is not going to buy unless they want it, unless they want that time back. They might need it back. They might have needed it back for months. but it's when they decide that they want it more than having the money in the bank, more than spending their evenings doing their admin or spending their weekends doing their invoicing. There's a simple trade-off going on here. In the buyer's mind, there is a trade-off. What do I want that I'm prepared to pay for? Okay, and you are only going to make a sale when the want is higher than the money. I don't know if my hands are going to come out well on screen if I'm going to be the other way around, because on my screen it's the wrong way around, but hey, you get the point. Yeah, when the want is bigger than the money, when the want is bigger than the cost and the investment and the perceived value, when the want outweighs everything, a sale will happen. Okay, so first reframe for you is that selling is serving. Please see it as serving. You know, see it as helping. You are helping. I see we've got Sue here on the session. Hi, Sue. Sue, I know, has heard me say before, and I remember that she particularly liked this sentence, that sales is a conversation between two people who can help each other. That's it. That's all it is. It's just a conversation where you are asking questions so that you can learn about whether or not you are a good fit, whether or not you are the right person, whether or not your solution is a good fit. Yeah, and if at any point in the sales conversation you believe that your program, your coaching program, your service is not a good fit, do not sell it. Do not. No, do not do it. Because if you plow on and make a sale just so that you can, just for the money, for example, you will end up with an unhappy customer who complains, who doesn't give you testimonials, who doesn't say good things about you, who isn't going to take to social media and tell everybody how amazing you are. If you don't feel it's the right fit, walk away. Sell with integrity, okay? You must sell with integrity. I pride myself on integrity. If I don't believe that I am the right fit for a client, I will say so right there and then. I'll help them to find somebody else who is. I'll help them to find a program that's a better fit, because ultimately I want to come out of it with a friend. I want to come out with a referrer, with somebody who might, you know, be out there and recommend me one day because of the nice way that I've treated them by not selling something to them unless it was right. So selling is serving, guys. Selling is just a conversation between two people who can help each other. Okay? Write that down. Remember it. If you need to write it on a post-it note and keep it on your mirror where you do your hair or your makeup or wash your face or whatever, brush your teeth, put it on a post-it note on your mirror. Make sure that you aren't pulling out of sales conversations because you feel awkward about having them. If you see sales as serving, you're not going to pull out of any of those situations because you want to serve. You've got a gift to share, you've got a service to give. Why would you not want to serve? Of course you want to serve. You're good at your job, you're good at what you do. And so once you see selling as serving, you will put yourself into more sales situations. Because to make a sale, you have to have opportunities to sell. And if you are believing that sales is awkward and not really for you, and that you're not good at it, then you will be, whether you realize it or not, you'll be subconsciously opting out of sales opportunities. Okay? So first reframe for you is selling is not selling. Selling is serving. Okay? Second reframe for you, there's three. Second reframe for you. If you guys have got any questions, by the way, you can fire them at me and I will hopefully be able to answer them either midway or at the end, because I can see the comments. So actually, did I just see, Katie, you had a potential client call this morning. OMG, whoop, whoop, whoop. That's brilliant. Very proud of you, my dear. Mwah. Hope you win it. So, second reframe for you. The second reframe is, do you, at the moment, do you see sales as a win-lose situation? Do you see that if you make a sale, that you are the winner, that you've won? Therefore, if you've won, the customer's lost. Do you see sales as a win-lose situation? So if you don't make the sale, you've lost, the client's won. because they've kept hold of their money? Do you see sales as win-lose or lose-win, whichever way, that if the sale doesn't take place, do you see that as a win-lose or a lose-win situation? My reframe for you, Penny saying yes, yeah, and you know that's wrong, but it's how you've been trained, Penny. It's not wrong to be aware of it. It's not wrong to even think of it, because it's how you've been trained. It's how you've probably been sold to in the past, or it might be how somebody else has trained you. Oh, hi Nick, I didn't know you were here. Hi Nick. You see it as the start of a relationship. Fantastic. So yeah, sales is not a win-lose or a lose-win. Sales, the reframe for you is it's a win-win. Now, I sometimes call this bag of cash syndrome. And the reason I call it bag of cash syndrome is because I want you to imagine a metaphorical bag of cash. Let's say the bag of cash. What have I got here that I can't drop? Here you go, my hand cream, right? My hand cream is a bag of cash. And so when the sales conversation takes place between a potential client and you, the business owner, there is this battle of who's going to get the bag of cash, who's going to end up with the bag of cash. And whoever ends up with the bag of cash is the metaphorical winner, and whoever doesn't end up with it is the metaphorical loser. Okay, I call this bag of cash syndrome, because what you need to remember is that this bag of cash is not the only thing that is being discussed in your sales conversation. In fact, the bag of cash does not get discussed until right at the end, probably, of your sales conversation. What's most important is your service. So I'm going to use my phone as the service. So if you see selling as serving, you replace the bag of cash in the conversation with the service. What you're really talking about is the service. Who's going to end up with the service? Are you going to end up with the service because you don't sell it on that occasion? Or is the client going to say yes and they're going to end up with the service? Okay, so you've either got bag of cash being talked about, or you've got service being talked about. Now, what you've really got in a sales conversation, whether it's a discovery call or whether it's, you know, a DM conversation, whether it's a live pitch, whether it's a webinar pitch, whatever it is, right? Instead of just seeing it that you're either talking about the service or you're either talking about the cash, you're actually talking about both of it. And one of you is going to get one thing and one of you is going to get the other. Now, this is why it's not a win-lose situation, because you both win. You both win. The reason you both win, in fact, the client wins bigger than you do. Why? Because your service is worth more than the bag of cash. That's the way return on investment works. Somebody's ringing me now. They must know I'm using my phone as a demonstration item. Stop ringing me. Okay, so you see the point I'm making, right? You've got a bag of cash and you've got a service, and both of you, you and the client, end up with something at the end. When the sales decision is made, the buying decision is made, you both end up with something, and it's a win-win. Return on investment, whether that investment is financial or emotional or a lifestyle investment, your service is worth more, because the return on investment should always be worth more than the bag of cash, than the investment itself. If I'm going to sell you a service for $1,000 and I only return you back $1,000 worth of value, then that is not a good sale. That is not a good investment, because $1,000 to get 1,000 back, you're no better off than what you were in the first place. When I talk about return on investment to my clients, I talk about 3 or 4 times the value. So if the bag of cash, the investment, is worth $1,000, the return on investment, the service, needs to net $3,000 to $4,000. Okay? Is this making sense, guys? What you're seeing is me attempting to demonstrate using a hand cream and a mobile phone that sales is a win-win. The return on investment means the service is worth more. So The client wins bigger than you do because your service is high value. Your service is high value. Some of the things we talked about in the earlier session today, which if you missed it, the live video is there in the event, and I posted it in the group. But some of the things we talked about around like money mindset is if you have some money hang-ups that are getting in the way, then it could be leading you to believe that sales is a win-lose, and that you haven't properly priced your service, because somewhere you're seeing this bag of cash as the primary conversation piece, and it really isn't. It really isn't. The investment is just a route to the service, and the service brings a benefit. So what is the benefit of your service? What is the impact of your service? That has to be front of mind for you at all times. Don't talk about what you do, talk about why you do it, and talk about why the client buys it and why the client loves it. What is the impact the client gets? If you talk about your service with regards to impact, results, and return on investment, you will find that you will start to get better engagement and more inbound inquiries. More people saying, there we go again. There's that lady that talks about being able to find me clients, and that's the one thing I want right now. I'm going to have to talk to her because I need to know how she's going to do that, because I can't do that right now. How is she going to do that? And it encourages people to get in touch with you. Whereas if you're talking about a framework for the way that you run your coaching program, or the way that you onboard your virtual assistant clients, if you talk about how you would redesign somebody's website or how you would build them a new logo, and you talk about how you would do that for them, you're not really going to stand out against all of your competitors. You're going to sound fairly similar, because unless you've got an absolute unique, trademarked, nobody else does it solution, what you really want to do is talk about the results that you get, because nobody's going to be able to talk about the results that you get in the exact way that you get them, because you are unique. Okay? So I hope this is making sense. So if you recognize that you might see sales as win-lose, then this reframe is for you. So post-it note above where you brush your teeth for you, please. Tomorrow, you need to tell yourself sales is a win-win. My service is worth something. My service is worth X, whatever the result is, whatever the return on investment is, and remind yourself of it every single day. So I said there was three reframes for you. Katie, you love it. Thank you. I'm glad you love it. Nick is getting it. That's fantastic. So my third reframe for you is, do you see a sales pitch or a sales conversation? Do you see yourself giving a pitch or having a conversation? So it's kind of a this or a that. And you might think, well, a pitch, I would usually define a pitch as one person to an audience of many. That can sometimes be a pitch. Conversation, what you might see as a one-to-one. I'm talking about pitch versus conversation in a slightly different way here, in that a sales pitch feels like it's something happening to you, and a sales conversation feels like it's something that's happening with you, that you need to be involved. So the reframe is to make sure that you are seeing your sales conversation revolving around your client. They have to feel like the VIP. They are the only client. For that moment that you're in a sales conversation, they are the only client that you've got. They have to feel like the only client that you have. And so I want you to start to reframe in your mind the way that you're selling. Are you selling in a pitch style where it's you just talking at your client and you're giving them, this is what I do, this is why I do it, this is how I do it, do you want to buy it? That's a pitch, a pretty bad one actually, but you get the point, yeah? A pitch is me broadcasting out. If I'm going to pitch you, you're not going to get a word in edgeways. I'm not going to ask you many questions. I'm just going to pitch at you as hard as I can. Pitch, 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 pitch. Whereas if it's a conversation, I like to describe that like a lovely game of tennis. Okay, I'm absolutely terrible at tennis. It's the one sport that I've never really been able to get my head around. The ball always seems to go through the racket. But sales conversations are like a game of tennis, a lovely, relaxed game of tennis, where the ball is gradually, slowly, comfortably being passed over the net by two really good and able tennis players, not me. And it just feels like a conversation where a question is asked and an answer is given. The answer is listened to and another question is asked. So the ball goes back, the conversation is going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Whereas a pitch wouldn't be like that. A pitch would be more like a broadcast, okay? So try to reframe in your mind when you are selling, even if you are selling in a pitch style, you know, like I'm here talking to a number of you, so that you could see that as a kind of that's a pitch style. There's one of me and an audience of many, but I can't ask you questions, you know, obviously we've got the chat, but you get my point. If you are pitching on a webinar, you are just in broadcast mode. Whereas if you are on a discovery call or you're having a DM conversation, it's like that lovely calm game of tennis where you're asking questions and you're getting answers. And it's the questions that give you the opportunity to understand what your client needs and why they need it. And then, like I said earlier, it's not always about the need, it's about the want. So when you've asked your customer about their problems, their challenges, what's going well for them, what's not going well, what the possible reasons are for that, to move that from being a need to being a want, you have to ask the want questions, okay? So you'll find out the needs by saying, you know, where are you now? Like, what's going on for you now? What's going well? What's not going well? You'll find out all about their problems and their needs. To turn it into a want, you would ask them things like, how big an issue is this for you? How open are you to changing it? How committed are you to changing it? If I asked you to rank in terms of 1 to 10 for urgency, how urgent is this? If 10 is super urgent and 1 is, I might do something about it, where is this for you? Where is this problem for you? If they give you anything that's 8 and above for urgency, then you've got a really good chance of making a sale in that conversation. How committed are you to making change? Again, you can ask them to rank it for you, just to help you understand how much of a problem is this for them and how much do they want to change it. So you can slowly go from open questions into more closed questions. How committed are you to changing this is an open question. They're going to give you some detail. And so you might then be able to say, and so when might that start? When might that start? Might you start to make that change now? Could you see yourself working with me on that change? And so you might be able to ask them questions to draw it to a time in the conversation where you can possibly present your solution. One thing that I do think is really important selling a service is getting permission to sell, asking somebody's permission. You know, are you ready for me to tell you how I can help you? I've understood what you need. I've understood why you want that. I've understood why it's important. I believe, I'm very confident that I could help you, but are you ready for me to tell you how I could help you? Because when they say, yes, I am, that's a small glimmer of hope for you that they are in a buying frame of mind, okay? So remember to ask permission to sell rather than just blasting it out there, okay? So third reframe is see sales as a conversation, not a pitch. See it as a two-way conversation. Does anybody have any questions for me? Is there anything that you want to know? I'm going to be live again tonight at 9 o'clock. So 9 o'clock UK time. I've published in the group what time that is in the other time zones. I think that's 4 p.m. Eastern. Eastern's minus 5 hours. So with a bit of a Q&A. So later on, I'm happy to do a bit of a Q&A. Has anybody got any questions now? Anna, I'm just looking at yours. You've got a conundrum. you've been asked to price a project, you know they've got limited budget, but it would be a long-term piece of work. Is it okay to go a bit lower knowing that it will be long-term? Well, discounting is always a tricky situation. I would always give you the advice not to discount unless there was a really good upfront agreed reason for it. So for example, if you normally sell that particular package for a 6-month commitment and your client is talking about a year, I'm making it up, obviously I don't know the details, but then that might be a reason why you might say to them, my price would usually be X for this, but because this is a longer piece of work and because, you know, I've understood you, I'm confident I can help you, we've got on really well, I'd love the opportunity to work with you, I'm going to make the decision to adjust the price for you. So I would always put across the discount with the reason, because, now here's my reason for never discounting. If you give a price to somebody, if any of you give a price to a client and they say, oh, that's slightly out of my budget, can you do it, say 10% cheaper? If you say yes at that point to sign the contract and to move on, you've actually just educated your client that you were going to overcharge them. That is what you've essentially admitted to doing. You've said, yeah, 10% lower, that's fine. I just want to get the work. Yeah, let's do it. So what I would always say is never discount unless you can surface a reason for it. So if somebody says, yes, I want to work with you, I want to buy that service, but the price that you've just given me is not within my budget, it's not what I want to spend right now, then you shouldn't just give them the discount. You shouldn't just go, yeah, fine, it's my business, I can set the price, yeah, I'm going to drop the price. You shouldn't do that. You should say, well, what I can't do is just sell you the same package for that price. What I can do though, now that I understand your budget, is I can, you know, talk to you about how we can maybe change the way the service is delivered, or we can adjust the commitment time, the period of time, or the volume that you buy, or you can say, how about I allow you to buy that service at that price because I've really enjoyed our conversation, we've got on well, I feel like we could work well together, and I want to work with you, but my price is X, but I will sell it to you at Y as long as we agree that that you're going to give me a testimonial at the end, or that we're going to be able to do a case study together, or something. You need to get something else out of that relationship, out of that negotiation, because otherwise they're going to believe that you were going to overcharge them, and that's not good, because, you know, we want to retain our clients, don't we? We don't just want to sell one thing and then have them disappear. We want them to come back and buy from us again and again and again. So that trust has got to stay high. You've built the trust throughout the sales conversation. The trust has reached that premium point where they trust you enough to buy. Don't then ruin it by making them then believe that you were going to overcharge them. Allow them to believe that you've only done that because of the way that you're going to work together, either for a longer term, for bigger volume, or because you're going to engage in a case study piece of work at the end where you can showcase the work that you did together, and that because that's got a value to you, you're prepared to give them a discount for that. Does that make sense, guys? Is anybody like struggling with that? Hopefully that makes sense to you. Has anybody else got any other questions that they want to get the answers to about sales? Bet you weren't expecting me to use my hand cream in this live, were you? Any other questions that you've got for me about sales? We've got a number of other topics tomorrow to cover. So tonight I was going to do the Q&A, so I will come on live and do the Q&A for you. And just so that you know what we've got coming up tomorrow, I'm just going to get the exact titles for you. So tomorrow we've got why do clients buy? So a little bit around like sales psychology. So I'm going to explain what's really going on at that precise moment where, you know, you're in a sales conversation, whether that's a human conversation, whether that's in the DMs, but what is actually going on at that moment. I'm going to explain that for you. And again, happy to answer questions on that. And then again tomorrow, how to feel so much better and more confident asking for the sale. So I know that some of you, when I said that we were going to do a sales mindset boot camp, you said to me that you have trouble asking for the sale, that you love the bit where you're talking about what the client needs and why they need it and how you can help them, how you can serve them. You love that part, but the actual closing of the sale makes your toes curl and you find it excruciating actually just asking for the sale. So I'm gonna go into some detail about that for you tomorrow. So I hope that you found this really useful. One of the other sort of reframes, actually, I'll just give you quickly, it's just come into my mind, is, you know, at the end of a sales conversation, one of the questions that many people ask the client is, have you got any questions? And often the client will say no. And then you might, you know, let them go off and think about it maybe, and you might never hear from them again. And you're always left wondering, did they have a question that they didn't ask me? Why did they ask me? I asked them if they had a question. They should have just raised it there and then, and we could have dealt with it, instead of me trying to follow them up 3 times and them just ignoring me and making me feel bad. Yeah, you know this happens. So my little word of wisdom for you, just before we finish, is at the end of a sales conversation, rather than saying, have you got any questions for me, which to be honest invites the no, and you don't want to know, you want to know what they're thinking, you want to get a question. Instead of saying, have you got any questions, slightly reframe it and say, what questions do you have? You must have some questions for me. What questions do you have? And if you say, what questions do you have, the psychology is different. The psychology in that is that the client thinks, well, they're not asking me, do I have any questions? They're asking for my questions. It's much more direct. So they're much more likely to ask you. So they might ask you things like, you know, what results do clients typically get? You know, have you got any testimonials I can read? Have you got a client I could talk to before I decide? You know, they could ask you anything. You know the questions that your clients usually ask you. So rather than saying, have you got any questions, slightly reframe that and say, what questions do you have for me? And I promise you, you'll suddenly start to get more questions asked of you, which means you've got the opportunity to answer them, rather than sending all those follow-up emails, you know, have you made a decision yet? And not getting any response, which is soul destroying, I know. So yeah, I thought that might just help you right at the end there. So that's it from me, guys. Thank you so much for being here and engaging in Bootcamp. It's only day 1. We've got some really good stuff to come. I've got absolutely loads to share with you.